Okay, so thanks for tuning into this video. I want to start off thanking a couple of people. I want to thank my wife, Amy, and my mother and father-in-law, Joan and Jay, for being there for me while I went through COVID-19. It was kind of rough. I want to thank Dr. Gabriel, my general practitioner of 25 years, Dr. Hoffman for my first ER visit, Dr. Ott for my second ER visit, and my cousin, Dr. Grabensk, who is a first-year resident doctor at UNC Chapel Hill. He kept me from jumping off a cliff during this whole thing. I also want to thank Troy, who's a friend of mine. He's a ICU nurse in Atlanta, and Patricia, who also went through COVID-19, who was busy texting me all sorts of great info. And what happened was, and that's why my channel hasn't had a new video in over a month. I woke up on a Monday, right after 4th of July, and my wife and I have been very diligent. We wear masks, we social distance, we don't go anywhere, we don't go to parties, we don't do any of that kind of stuff because we have at the time we had an 8-month-old baby, or actually, she was born last November, so during all of COVID, we've kept her hidden, almost like, what Jor-El did, with Clark Kent, and just keep the baby away from just disaster. And so we've been staying in. So on a Monday morning, this was after 4th of July weekend, Monday morning, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning in a flop sweat. We couldn't find a thermometer at the time because it was 4:30 in the morning, and I was like sweaty and nauseous, and I walked over to the bathroom and I thought I was going to throw up. And, I just laid on the floor in the bathroom, almost like when you're drunk and, the ground feels nice, in the bathroom. So I'm in the master bathroom laying on the floor and I'm shivering and I've got the chills and the whole 9 yards, and we've been social distancing. So this was the furthest thing from my mind of like what I was going through. I just thought maybe I had food poisoning or something like that. So this was Monday morning at 4:30 in the morning. So, and because of COVID, I said, you know what? I told my wife, I said, well, how about this? You stay in the guest room because it's near the baby's bedroom anyway. I said, and I'll self-quarantine. And so I got up about 10:30 in the morning and I called my doctor and set up a virtual doctor's appointment the next morning on Tuesday. So here I am all day Monday. I couldn't get out of bed. I felt horrible. And I had body aches, everything you can imagine, I had it that Monday. So at midnight, I get up to go to the bathroom and I walk by the mirror in the master suite and I see blotches all over me. And I was like, what the hell is this? So, and I'll put a picture up here. I'll put several pictures up here. So you'll see a picture of my thigh, my left thigh, and then you'll see pictures of other limbs, my right leg, my left leg, and then you'll see a picture of my torso. And I had a viral breakout all over my body, and I looked like Deadpool. It was horrible, and it didn't make me uncomfortable or anything, and it wasn't itchy or anything. It was everywhere, and I thought, what the hell is going on? So right away, just out of paranoia, I Googled, and this is at midnight on Monday, COVID-19 and rash to see what would come up, and sure enough, it has directly to do with COVID toes. And the rash was all over. And so I'm panicking at midnight because I don't have a virtual doctor's appointment until the next day at 3 p.m. But when I woke up that morning, as soon as the doctor's office opened up, I called and said, look, we got to do this virtual thing. I can't wait till 3. I told him what was going on. My whole body was broken out. He said, okay, fine. We'll do a virtual at 10 a.m. instead of 3 p.m. So 3 p.m. rolls around, or 10 a.m. rolls around on Tuesday, and I have my virtual meeting with my doctor, and I lift up my shirt and I'm showing him all my limbs because we did it with a cell phone. And he says, okay, he said, come on in and let's do a coronavirus test. He said, when can you get here? I said, when the hell do you want me there? And so I went about an hour or so later to the doctor's office, and I pulled up in the parking lot, and he came out in all his PPE gear, and we did a nose swab. But he handed me the little stick, and it was a long stick like this. I put it back as far as I could, twisted it, handed it back to him, lifted up my shirt, showed him my stuff in real time right there, all over. And he was like, you have a viral rash. And he was like, it's probably COVID. You're probably sick. And I said, okay, fine. So we're waiting for the test result. I get back to the house, and next thing you know, I'm laid up in bed and I'm waiting. Now, the only thing my doctor told me to do is take vitamin D, 4,000 milligrams, and vitamin C, 2,000 milligrams, and zinc. That's all he said. Those were the only instructions. He didn't want to give me anything till we got the test results back. Well, the test results, this was on a Tuesday, weren't coming back till Friday. So I had all these days to wait until I got the test results back. And by the way, I'm just going to say as a disclaimer, I'm just talking about my experience. I'm not telling anybody any medical stuff that they need to do. If they're sick with COVID, you need to consult your own doctor and medical physicians. You don't need to take my experience. So while we're waiting, I start texting, my cousin who's a doctor and everybody else, and going on social media and letting people know that I'm sick and I have these rashes and blah, blah, blah. So come to find out, it's directly linked to COVID toes. In Italy, they're having, I'll put a chart up right here. These are the different symptoms that people are having with rashes. And my friend Troy, who's an ICU nurse in Atlanta, he told me, he said, we're seeing patients having skin discolorations in the ICU. That have COVID. And so I'm like, okay. And so this is all Tuesday going into Wednesday. And I told my wife, I said, go to CVS, get an oxygen meter for the finger, because I'd seen a couple of people on TV talking about oxygen meters, and I was having trouble. That's when the chest pain started. It was like on Wednesday. And roll around to Thursday, and I was having massive problems. And just out of safety, I was no longer sleeping. It actually hurt to sleep down, like on my back. And it's not until you find out, oh well, that people are sleeping face down because your lungs are actually on the backside of you more than they are on the front. So long story short, for the rest of my sickness, I sat up in the upright position with pillows behind me, and it was rough. And the breathing just got worse and worse and worse. Well, Friday rolls around, and I can't breathe. Every time I inhale, it felt like someone was stepping on my chest. Every time I exhaled, it felt like someone was stepping on my chest. So I had constant pressure on my chest. So my doctor calls me up on Friday, gets the results. And the results from the COVID-19 test is negative. I tested negative for COVID-19. And I was like, I said, I am dying. Like, what's going on? So my doctor says, well, listen, he goes, if you really, if you're feeling horrible. And I said, doctor, I can't breathe. And my doctor said, just go to the ER and have them run all the battery of tests. He says, because I can't do everything in my office that they can do in the ER. I said, okay, fine. So I go to the ER. I walk in, go through a, EKG. They put me on an EKG for my chest pains and heart and lungs. They did an X-ray of my chest that came negative for pneumonia. I didn't have pneumonia. But I was diagnosed that day with exposure. I'll put it up on the screen. Exposure to COVID-19, shortness of breath. And they did another COVID test. And what was weird was this is the second COVID test I had. And the first one, my doctor handed me the stick and I did it myself, handed it back to him. Wasn't sure if, I got a good sample or I did anything right. I'm in the ER. They give me a swab and it's a short one. And they're like, just go in the nostril. And I was like, well, but what, don't you put it all the way back? I was like, I'm being told that like, if you're not scrambling your brains or tickling your brains, that like, you're not hitting the right spot. And the nurse was like, no, our test, you just have to swab the nostril on the inside. Boom, that goes away. So I'm waiting on all those results, and they just send me home. They don't send me home with any medicine. They don't send me home with anything. They send me home. So Sunday rolls around, and the test comes back negative for COVID-19. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm dying. It's even worse at this point. I can't breathe again. So I go to the emergency room again on that Sunday. And this time they do a CT scan of my lungs and everything. And they run that ink through the body, and they to see if there's any. What they wanted to do was rule out a bacterial infection that might have caused all my symptoms, because they would be able to see that with a CT scan. So CT scan comes back, nothing. Okay, so my lungs are inflamed. They have no reason, whatever. They don't know. Okay. You probably have COVID. That's what they're saying. But the tests are coming back negative, blah, 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 blah. Well, my second ER visit, I'm diagnosed with shortness of breath. And let's see, what is it? What is written on? It's written on here: shortness of breath and dyspnea. dyspnea. I think that's how you say it. It's a medical term for basically inflammation of the lungs. So everyone thinks I'm crazy. A lot of people on social media, oh, you're crazy, you're being dramatic, blah 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 blah. And and then I've got other people telling me conspiracy stuff, like they're just telling you got COVID so they can charge you all this stuff. And I said, well, I got news for everybody, because I have a $4,000 bill for my 2 ER visits. That was after my insurance, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, paid my plan is a 60-40. So Blue Cross and Blue Shield paid 60, I paid 40, but I also paid my deductible, which was like $2,600. It was my deductible. So anyway, for a $12,000 visit to 2 ERs, I end up with a $4,000 bill. So the whole idea that like, oh, they're just telling people you've got COVID so that the government pays all the bills, it's bullshit. Don't believe it. It's not real. I even have friends of mine, like I said, that were telling me that their hospital has lost $600 million since this whole thing started, because they're having to do treatments and stuff and they're not getting reimbursed. And so there's a lot of problems going on. But anyway, so then because I'm going through all these problems and everything, my doctor's like, okay, quarantine, you need to quarantine. And so this happened on a Monday. Then the Tuesday was the doctor's appointment. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's day 5, I went to the ER. Saturday, Sunday to the ER. So that's 7 days. So I was sick for an additional 7 days after that. So a total of 14 days I was sick with COVID-19. And after the 14 days, I kept checking in with and did virtual things with my general practitioner, Dr. Gabriel. And as long as I had symptoms, it's 3 days more quarantine, 3 days more quarantine. And it went like that in intervals until I had no more symptoms. And that is recommended by the CDC. And that's what all the doctors are being instructed and everything, was 3-day quarantine, 3-day, 3-day, 3-day. You still have symptoms. So I ended up, all total, it was 21 days, which is why I was near death. There was no way I could do any videos for my channel or anything like that. So, but I'm on Facebook, and I was told by several other people that had COVID-19 that you needed to join a Facebook. There was this Facebook support group. Right now, I think they've got 19,000 people in it, and everyone's sharing their stories. Some people are sick with it, and their husband or wife was sick with it, and they have died. And I mean, this is a very sad Facebook group to be in. It's a support group, and there are people called long haulers that are still having 4 or 5 months out, fatigue and all sorts of sicknesses and illnesses, and all of it is linked or suspected to be linked to COVID-19. No one really knows what the hell is going on with all this stuff, and they're learning on the fly. And so so then I'm Google searching, why am I turning up negative? And then you find out, that there are lots of people. It's like no one believed me until like celebrities started coming out saying they were testing negative but still had the antibodies or whatever the case may be, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of false negatives out there. There are people that have coronavirus and everything. So I stumbled across a video of a gentleman who had COVID-19, and he is in the UK, and he was looking at all the research and everything that's going there, and he put together a really good video. I'll put it in the description below, that talks about people having two basic reactions to COVID-19. You have a reaction to COVID-19, and your body, over the course of several days, will start building up antibodies to fight it. If you don't have that reaction, you have reaction number 2, which is an inflammatory reaction. So your body's trying to fight it by inflaming everything, making everything so toxic that the virus can't survive. But in doing so, it's like killing you. Which is what a lot of the people over in the UK and the people in Italy, they were having this crazy syndrome that happens where everything starts shutting down because your body's trying to figure out what this virus is, how to fight it, and it's either going to develop antibodies or going to get inflamed. Well, it looks like that I had the inflammatory reaction to COVID-19. And the thing about it is I could test all day long, but it's not going to show antibodies because that's not how my body reacted to COVID-19. And they're learning all this stuff. There's all sorts of peer-reviewed information, journals that are coming out now, and they're learning all this stuff. Even when they were talking about Kawasaki syndrome in children, which causes the rashes, now adults are getting it. It's not just children. It's just because this thing is only 6 months old, and everyone's learning. It's science, people. You learn as you go and you discover new things. And that's kind of what had happened with me. And so, between my 2 ER doctors and my general practitioner, they all agreed I had COVID-19. Even though my test came back negative, it was one of the worst sicknesses I've ever had. But from what I understand, going into the Facebook support groups, my symptoms, everyone's symptoms are almost completely different. And then some are very similar, but you're not going to find one person that experiences COVID exactly the same as the next person. But what you're finding is there's lots of false negatives out there. These tests, they rush them to market. They're trying to figure it out. Some people are having inflammatory reactions. Some people are having the reactions which I had, which were what was the inflammatory, not the antibody thing. And then the other thing is, like, the CDC is even recommended when you go get a test, you should have symptoms for 4 days before you take a test. Now, I took my test within 18 hours 38 hours of my first symptoms on that Monday. 38 hours later, I took my COVID test, which that one came back negative. The next one came back negative. Anyway, long story short, that's the reason why I was deathly ill. One of the saddest parts about the whole thing was, I had at that time an 8-month-old baby, and for 21 days I had to stay away from her, and I could only look at her through my master window. And my wife would come around. It was the only way. My wife would leave food for me at the door. Sometimes I'd open the door as long as they were on the other side of the house and I could see them. I could wave to them, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I wore a mask in the house anytime the doors were open. This thing is no joke. I have a couple of other friends on Facebook who has lost relatives, mothers, uncles, all sorts of stuff. A lot of people are suffering from this, and then people shouldn't take it as a joke, man. They just shouldn't. They should not take it as a joke. This stuff is serious, and everyone needs to just, one of the things I say all the time is, the Spanish flu of 1918 lasted 3 years, and wiped out over 5 million people. And we're still 6 months into this thing, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon, but I'm not a scientist. I can't substantiate that, but it's my gut feeling. And, again, like when you're seeing people like Alyssa Milano come forward saying she tested negative, did two tests that were negative before antibodies were discovered. Now, I am going to be returning to work soon, in a few more weeks, and they are going to be doing a COVID-19 test when I go back to work. So maybe we'll see if I have developed antibodies by then. But the other thing is, with the antibody tests, is now they're saying, new research is coming out that, the antibody tests, you may only have antibodies for 4 to 6 weeks, or in some cases 3 weeks, and then they're gone. So it's been a while now that, over 3 weeks, that I have not had COVID. I believe it's been over 3 weeks. Yeah. It's been almost a month now or so. That's it, man. That's why my channel basically shut down and I was not heard of. Crickets. because I was very, very sick. And with a wife and an 8-month-old baby, now 9-month-old, I wasn't taking any chances, and it was very scary. But again, I can't thank the people enough that were there by my side, coaching me on and giving me all the updates on all the stuff that I needed to take, the different types of vitamins. There's so much information out there, but again, I'm not a doctor, and everybody's situation is different. So don't watch my video and go, hey, I didn't experience that or blah, blah. Everyone experiences different. And that's kind of what I've noticed from being in the support groups. And a lot of people had it way worse than I did, but there were several times where I thought I was going to die. And I think I averaged about 4 hours sleep a night because I couldn't sleep upright. And then there were times where I couldn't breathe. There was one time where my oxygen fell so low, 81%. It shouldn't drop below 88%. I should have rushed myself to the emergency, but I stood up and I paced around the house until I could get my breath back. And it got up to, 81, 83, 84, 90, and then back up again. But I wind up standing for the rest of the night. That was like at 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I wind up standing the rest of the day till the sun came up, and did not go back to bed that day. So yeah, I mean, it really knocks the shit out of you. And I always tell people, this thing kills you when you're falling asleep. It's almost like a Nightmare on Elm Street. The minute, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. Although your body needs to rest to recover, it's like the minute you fall asleep, that's when it wants to take you over, and you're not realizing that it's killing you. And your lungs are suffering, and you're not getting oxygen into the blood, into the organs, and all this other kind of stuff. So my doctors, they had put me on prednisone, along with a battery of different vitamins. The prednisone had its own crazy reaction. I had twitchy hands, everything was fluttering, and I lost my vision. I had blurred vision for days until I stopped taking the prednisone, and then it took 3 days for my vision to be restored after the prednisone wore off. And it's a common side effect with prednisone is blurred vision. And I had LASIK eye surgery, so I have 20/13 vision in one eye and 20/12 in another eye. I have amazing vision. So to have blurred vision was horrible. And I also wanted to give a shout out to my dog, Indiana Jones. I call him Indy Jones, or Indy for short. He's 13 years old, and he never left my side throughout this entire process. The loyalty of this dog was amazing. He literally laid in his custom bed next to my bed, and he'd only get up to go out the doggy door to use the bathroom or to get food, and he'd come back in, and he's always been my shadow, but he knew I was sick. He knew something was wrong, and 21 days he stayed with me, next to me. 13-year-old dog. It's the greatest dog I've ever had. So I needed to do a little video for him and mention him. A shout out to Indy, my dog, who is the best dog in the world as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for sticking around for my journey through COVID-19. Let's hope I don't have to do it again. Be safe out there. Wash your hands, wear a mask, and social distance. Take this thing seriously, and we'll see you on the next video.